All of a sudden, I just saw this older, tired person that I'd never had time to see looking back at me. I'm the mother of all these kids, and I'm so proud of that, but who am I really?
I would absolutely love to hear about your personal journey. Where you're from, childhood, a little bit about you.
Oh boy, that's 61 years of a lot.
So take your time.
Starting, I'm always curious. So I always like to learn and I like to hear about people. And as a young girl, my father was an attaché in Washington, so exposed to a lot of interesting people and politics. And as a Canadian, though, so I was always part of something, but not part of something. That community was always important to me. And knowing what it feels like to be the outsider within a community was always something that I knew because I was a Canadian living in U.S. and I moved there during Vietnam. I lived through Reagan. I lived there for a long time and came to Canada, went back to Canada, met my husband as a teenager. Before I met my husband, I was very curious, met lots of people, knew lots of people, had lots of friends, loved fashion. I always had a job of some sort because I wanted more. I just always, wanted more. So I started babysitting because I loved children and it was an easy way to make money at about 11. I got my first job at 16. I was modeling at 15, but I'm not tall like you. So in my generation, it was like your boobs aren't big enough, your hips are wider. My proportions weren't quite right, of course. So I felt a bit of a body thing going on there that I didn't fit in quite well. And then I also felt intimidated by a lot of the men in the profession, which you probably know at that time, and I didn't like that. And then the curiosity in me thought, I care more about people than fashion. So I went to university and got a degree in psychology. So that sort of changed my path, but I still always loved fashion and makeup and just making people feel beautiful and feeling beautiful myself, the whole package. It really wasn't about what can I have next. It was really about just feeling good in my skin and being with people that felt the same way.
Which feels like you're doing exactly that now.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm kind of branching out to say that it's like I've had all these lives, but yet it all sort of came to a head in the last, few years when I put it all together, the puzzles coming together.
How did it come together? Like, how did social media enter into your life?
My goodness. Well, I would say that there was a segue from my work, and I was very interested in aging people as I got into my psychology in my universities. So I was studying gerontology, physical fitness, and health, and that's what my undergrad was in. And I became a mom. And it was during a time, yes, women were working, but I came from a family where my mother was a stay-at-home mom and my husband's mother was a stay-at-home mom. So that was my path. And because I'm a perfectionist, it became about being the perfect mom or having, and I wouldn't say that I put any thought into that. It just was devoting my heart.
That was the landscape.
That was the landscape.
Right.
Just to do it. It was from my heart. I love my children. I loved the time. It was magical. It was a bit of a fairy tale. I was very fortunate. When they were gone, there was this big emptiness and this sensation of, okay, I've gotten them from A to B. Now, where am I going here? There was a loneliness that came with that. I didn't want to shop and go for lunch and play golf and do all those things. Fitness has always been part of my life. Health food has always been a part of my life. So that was a given. But it was more that empty space after that was done. The workout was done. The groceries were done. The meals were made. My daughter was doing a Instagram. She said, you got to get on Instagram just to see what I'm doing on Instagram. So I got
so you can follow her.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that. I loved her page and it kept us together. My kids were in school in US. So I was in Canada and it kept me connected to my kids. And then somewhere in that, people started talking to me and I started talking the way I always talked, I got my shirt here, or I got my makeup there, or this is what I do and I work out and I eat and, I just shared my lifestyle. And then I saw the niche, or not the niche, but the need, guess, the need that I have for a community, that need to be needed. And I think we live in a world where there's so much go, go, go.
Yeah.
but there's not enough time for the downtime. And I was fortunate, like I said, in my parenting to have that downtime.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us aren't. And at the same time, during that downtime for me, I did forget about things that I was passionate about because I put those things on hold for my kids.
But I feel like back then, like now, there's definitely a bigger aspect of feeling like you're missing out or that you don't really, more conversation about losing your identity in a way during motherhood.
Yeah.
But back then, like you mentioned, I mean, it wasn't a conversation. It's like,
No.
this is something I got to do. I got to raise these children.
Yeah.
And there's no more space for anything else.
That's right.
But did you know that you will have to pick up once they're gone, or you didn't think about it at all?
I didn't think about it at all. And I think that's the beauty of where I was during that phase, because there were times that I'd look in the mirror and go, oh my God, who is that looking at me? I'm tired, my hair was frazzled or whatever, and put the makeup on in the beginning of the day, didn't look at myself till the end of the day. But the joy that I got out of that day or whatever was worth whatever time that was. I never thought I was missing out on anything. And I had friends that were more social or friends that were rising in their careers, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And I never saw it as a sacrifice. It just was what I had to do. When I was a young mom, I had an older mom that had 5 children, I think she had, and they were older than my children. And she said, it's all about a frame of mind. And that stuck with me. And she said, we sacrifice this for our kids or give this time up for our kids, but in the end, we're doing what we did when we were pregnant. When we're pregnant, we nourish our bodies for our babies. When we have them, it's our responsibility to nourish them, educate them, feed them, and keep helping them flourish. It's not just about us. So that became my mission. Give them healthy food, healthy examples, listen, talk, all the things that you do as a mom. And yeah, I never thought twice. I never felt like I was missing out when I saw the world.
You have
going
4
on.
kids.
4.
How old are they now?
My oldest is 38. You could be my daughter. My oldest is 38. My next one is almost 35, 32, and 28.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
I often think about, and sometimes my husband is like, you tend to romanticize the past, because I do. Because even listening to your story, I'm thinking, wow, I can only imagine how light motherhood could feel like if I wasn't exposed to all of these possibilities. On one hand, we are able to do so many things, but on the other hand, you're able to do so many things that you kind of lose the present moment and looking at what's, the most important. And I always wonder if I would have enjoyed motherhood at a time where I didn't have all these wants and needs and my own aspirations.
I love following you because I see myself in so many of the little things that you do, your children, your interaction, your smiles, your giggles, your kids' little tricks, and whatever I see things that, of course, I don't even have on camera because we didn't have cameras. We did have cameras, but there was no time for that within the chaos. And no matter what you're doing, your life is busy. So we didn't have maybe the social media and the demands of society, but we had other responsibilities in our life that we have to get them to the dance class. We have to get them to school on time. We have to buy them clothes or buy them school supplies, all the things that we went into our day. You guys have more. It's a huge taxing thing. And I think also you also have Instagram to show you, I think you were talking about it this morning, that perfect look and then the reality, and we do mesh both. It's not all a fairy tale.
Right.
My life wasn't totally a fairy tale. The good news is as you get older, you remember the better feels because that's what you miss. You don't miss the not so good days or the chaotic days when everybody's frazzled and can't find a craft or something that's so important. Social media, and I think that just the demand for wanting more has become so crazy with young people. And we didn't have that. I mean, of course, we wanted nice things. So if I started my family in my early 20s, just like you, by my 30s, I was too busy with the kids and the dog and the house, and we had 2 houses. And that juggle that I didn't have time to think about the purse that I needed or what was on trend, because I was lucky if I I made it a point. I was going to say I was lucky if I got dressed, but I never wore pajamas all day. It was never my thing because putting on my outfit for the day meant I was ready for my day. It was just a mindset.
When I found you on social media, I was on a quest. I was kind of going through a point where I was looking at my algorithm. I was looking what was served to me. And because this is my job, I'm very aware that, all of this is very programmed. And I have to make sure that I don't let that control my life and I still dictate what is presented to me. So I was at a place where I see all these beautiful, young, successful, wonderful women talking about things that my age, right? Talking about things that I'm like, you cannot have this conviction in what you're saying at our age. We haven't gone through enough. We haven't done enough to understand. And also visually, I'm just like, that's all I see. And I want to start kind of building better relationship with aging, start seeing women that are out there, that are more mature, that have gone through life, that can share certain things that I haven't realized or experienced yet.
Right.
Because I know that will be very helpful for the woman that I will be in 10, 20, 30 years.
Yes.
So I found you on social media. And just like you mentioned to me, I connected with you because I saw, that kind of resonated with the kids and the family life and who you are. I very much resonated with your essence. There's something about
Thank you.
That's just so young and wonderful and graceful. I remember I was looking through her profile and I'm like, wow, like she's on a mission. And I don't think you realized that you were on a mission.
I was told not to write a caption so long, that was going to affect my algorithms, that I talk too much. And I thought, well, my face is my face, but what I'm saying here is me, because I always tried to give a tidbit of my reality. There's a person in this frame and share the story, because I think that that's what we're all looking for, right? We're all looking for this community, as I said, and young and old. We're all dealing with that. So I wanted to put that out there. So that became my mission. But also to connect with all these women, because if I'm feeling this way and you're feeling this way, many people out there are feeling this way, and we're strong, tough survivors. We're not just soft, pretty little girls that like to play with makeup. There's so much more.
I felt the need to expose my audience that are mainly younger women to older women on social media, because it used to be that way. We used to be in a community physically that has the grandmothers and the great grandmothers and the mothers. And we used to all sit together and there was guidance, there was support. We don't have that anymore. Especially because now with the amount of progress we've made in the past decade, I would say, even technology, I feel like it really separated the generations, because so many kids today can look at their parents and be like, you don't know what you're talking about, because how can they keep up with all of this?
No, it's hard.
Right? So it creates even more separation.
For sure.
Where in reality, a lot of the things that we go through, or my kids go through, it might look different, but the essence is kind of the same.
Yeah.
There's such a need to promote this intergenerational connection.
Absolutely.
Right? Of finding this communities that we can bring together online or in person that can really support, because I feel that we are probably the most lost we've ever been nowadays.
As a world?
And as women, actually. As women as well. Because again, although we have all these possibilities, it actually kind of throws us in all these different directions.
Right. Absolutely.
And we're still trying to keep what the traditional life used to look like.
And I think that that's why at this stage of my life, I'm making a change, because I dedicated that chunk of time to my family and I would not change it for the world. I sort of felt like I was saving them from the wolves for a while, preserve their innocence while I can, and hopefully help them become morally good people that would contribute, or whatever I was thinking. I don't really know. But I think now, as women, whether you choose to have a family or not is your choice. There are women that are crazy about kids. I was. There are women that like kids, but it's not in them. They're not maternal. They don't really want children. And that's okay too. I actually have connected with a lot of women that are single, that have never been married, that have incredibly powerful careers. And I am falling in love with them because it's what I didn't have. So I want to know what they are all about. I want to know what made them passionate. And it's letting go of the judgment of what women are and learning from each other that may help open things up a little bit. And that goes on both sides. I mean, maybe that also comes with wisdom. The older we get, the more we can sit in a room with anybody and carry on a conversation because we're not intimidated by anybody, because we're all getting old. You know, we have to let go of that ego and realize that it's just an ego. Ego will hold us back from the fun that we can have in our lives, right? That playfulness that we definitely need to keep as we get older.
As you started getting older, because that's something that we talk a lot, and I ask my mom too, we talk a lot with my friends about. A lot of women experience this. You wake up one day, look in the mirror, and you're not 27 anymore.
Oh, that happened.
At what point did it happen for you?
I would say it was about 41, and this is something I've thought about a lot because it just keeps coming back. I might not have been. My son went to university. You know, you'll feel it when yours does, and it felt like somebody cut off my arms. And I didn't know what to do with my day. I don't want to get emotional. I had 3 children at home, and my youngest was only 10, or not even. I can't remember now. Anyway, she was young. So I had a lot of years left with 3 kids at home, with him gone. But it felt like something was really missing, this large presence in my home. And I just remember looking, maybe it was after the next one went to university. It's like, wow. And then I saw myself in the mirror and thought, she looks really angry. She looks really unhappy. Where did those wrinkles come from? You know, like I saw things that my hair, you know, I went gray early. I was dyeing it. I didn't like the color. Like all of a sudden, I just saw this older, tired person that I'd never had time to see looking back at me. And I got into yoga. I was running marathons at the time. I stopped running as much. I just started being aware that I needed to take care of my skin, which I hadn't been doing the same because society didn't think of skin the same way before that. And yeah, it was a real epiphany that it's like, okay, now you might have a minute to take care of yourself, to catch up on some things, to soften a little bit, you know.
And that's the thing. I feel like there's a term, aging gracefully, and I was sitting with it this morning a little bit. And I'm like, is there such a thing as aging gracefully? Because I feel like this change, this season, it happens with grace. I guess you can go through it with grace, but I don't know, it feels like a hard
It's all hard.
change.
Life is hard for everybody. We all suffer in some way. There's always stuff. I would say with aging, the hardest thing is loss, you know. So the older you get, you lose people. And even when you're young, you go through tragedies and you lose people. Those are all those reminders or those roadblocks that sort of, oh my God, how am I going to get on after that happens? And, you know, I've had my share of losses that I don't really share necessarily publicly. And all of those things have been stopping points for me to become more aware of what my purpose is and do I want more in my life? Then I think once I get through the loss or the immediate feeling of that loss, I think, yes, I do. I'm ready for more. But I think when we go through loss, we tend to isolate ourselves. Family becomes the most important thing rather than the bigger picture of the world. And our families are all growing and they all need the world. So we need to continue to grow, if that makes any sense. You know, we need to...
That's a really interesting point, because I did have a question about loss. And I think that it happens obviously as you age more, and not just loss, but I mean physical, like death, but even loss of friendships, loss of, you know, relationship with people that matter to you at some point. How do you learn to process that?
This too shall pass. People come into our lives for a purpose, whether it's good or bad. Things that we go through, I like to believe, are for a reason, whether it's good or bad. And I believe that with tragedy or with any loss of a friendship, loss of experiences that we have with friends, we need to look at it as a lesson for the better almost. And I hate to say that because I know with tragedy, it's hard to explain certain things that happen. But I think you still have to find faith of some sort to move through it, to get to a better place, because otherwise everything that we go through just sucks us back into that stay in bed mode.
I would love to ask one more question, and because I know you have lost your mother this year.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And to me, that's honestly one of the scariest things.
Oh, it's terrifying.
With aging, like I'm getting older. Obviously, there's the beautiful things of seeing your children grow, but then you're also seeing your parents age. And, that to me, I don't know how to sit with that and how to accept that. Is that something you started thinking about?
No, I guess,
at all? No.
I think we always think our parents are going to be there forever. And they're a presence in our lives. You call them every morning or you don't call them because you're busy, and I think in our busy world, I think that that's where we forget the importance of, checking in occasionally, that mother sitting at home going, are they ever going to call me? No. I think that, a mother always needs her children. We need more. Our parents need more. Our parents need to have a life as well. But I don't think you ever really realize until it happens. My sister shared a picture of my mother today, and my mother wore bobby socks. Do you even know what that means?
No.
Little white bobby socks, like little.
Oh, with the frill?
It's the 50s thing. They were white, and she wore them with her sneakers. And I saw this picture, and it's just like my heart, because I remember as a young girl thinking, Mom, those socks. Anyway, but she liked those socks. It was a 1950s thing that was fashionable. Not so fashionable. Anyway,
we'll probably come back because
I saw it and I thought, that's my mom. I love those socks. I love that smile. I love everything about it. But everything that my mother was, I like to think that I embody or try to embody. I would want to make her proud every day because that's the kind of person that she was. So the loss is tremendous, but I think coping with loss is part of life, obviously. And then again, moving through it and being a better person because of it, if that's even possible.
Yeah.
Caring for older parents is very hard, because you worry about them, your anxieties as you age. I would definitely say change. Women, menopause, anxiety, it's like all hand in hand, which I would say is probably what people are most fearful of. But again, if you stay healthy, active, the symptoms of these things are far less than, if you're not eating healthy, if you're eating a lot of sugar, if you're having a lot of alcohol, the symptoms that come with menopause are more intense.
I have already friends that they're in their mid or late 40s and they're already in their premenopause. My mother also got it really early on in her, late 40s. Looks very scary. Looks like a no man's land because no one really knows how to navigate it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of expertise in the medical field that
happening.
has changed.
Yes,
right. It's all things that's been they've been doing the same things over and over again for a few years now, and it's not doing anything. Did you start your healthy lifestyle prior to?
Yes.
You did.
Actually, before coming here, I said to my kids, so what would you say about me? Hoping. Anyway, they said healthy was first. My mother was very healthy. So I was raised very clean and home cooking, and that was natural for me. And again, back to you're pregnant, you eat healthy, you breastfeed, you feed them well. What are you going to feed them after? And it became about that for me. So, of course, I ate healthy, so healthy and clean. And I started it from the get-go. So I took organic cooking courses, vegetarian cooking courses in my early 20s. And that became my style of cooking. A few of my kids have allergies, so I learned a little bit more. I had children that were a little bit chubbier than the norm. And I loved every bit of how they were. And I was really so driven on making them feel good in their skin so that they wouldn't be aware that they may be different than the skinny, scrawny person next to them. So everything about my whole style of cooking and feeding became about eating healthy and helping them love food that fueled them, at the same time helping them love food and letting it be a really great experience. And I think I really did that. I think they would say that They all love healthy food and they all have good body images.
That's amazing.
Think of my parenting style during most of my years. I was driven to exercise every day, eat healthy every day, and fuel my body, and in hopes that it would be something that my children would also adopt.
And is yoga also something that you've been practicing for many, many years, or it's something that happened kind of more recent for you?
I would say more recent, but now it's 20 years. So that's what happens. I remember when I was running marathons and somebody said, "How long have you been running marathons?" I was younger than you. And I said, "I think about 9 years." And they said, "Oh, that's not that long." Anyway, and then it got to 20 years. And at 20 years of sort of running, I got into yoga because I had an injury with my running. And when I got into yoga, I realized I couldn't touch my toes and I couldn't bend. And I thought, I need to be able to move my body because I'm only 42 or whatever I was at the time, or 40. So I was determined and I went to seniors yoga. And all these seniors like me now were doing all these things that I couldn't do. And I was determined that this was a lifestyle that I wanted to be a part of. And my mother practiced yoga. My grandmother practiced yoga.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother taught meditation. So I had a bit of a root that I felt that was in me.
Your grandmother taught yoga?
No,
and
my
meditation.
grandma taught meditation.
Meditation.
Yeah, she was a spiritual teacher of sorts.
Wow.
And so I had that in me and that drive to, okay, this is how I was raised. I've been living this sort of fast-paced, kids running. And people would say to me, "What are you running from?" Because I'd go out for 10 miles every day. That's my sanity. That run was my sanity. And I'm sure you know what that means when you get away and you just run and your brain goes clear and the fresh air and everything else. But then I could come home and be in the chaos of my kids. Definitely the yoga helped change a lot in my life because with the yoga became this living in my truth and being who I am. And it's like, who am I? Like you said, that transition at 40 when I saw myself. I'm the mother of all these kids and I'm so proud of that. But who am I really? I'm a wife and I'm a mother, and I just felt like I didn't fulfill something within that journey that I'm on. I felt like my parents gave me a lot as far as education, but I hadn't fulfilled that. And I felt like I needed to
Something was
do
still
more. I felt like what I'd started, I hadn't completed. And then this sort of all has evolved. And I feel like I'm on that same journey that I'm not sure where it's going. It's like a flower that's blooming. And I'm completing whatever that mission is that I'm hopefully not completing it, but working towards that.
That's so exciting to me because I think that there's this notion and there's a lot of cliches around getting older. And there's even, very common sayings where like you can teach an old dog new tricks and things like that. Things that we say without even thinking that really contribute to that limiting thought that we have about aging.
Absolutely.
Do you have any cliches or anything you can think of that you're just like, you grew up hearing and that's what you thought aging would look like?
No. I'm a very cliched person. So the only thing that came to me, old Fords never die. They just go faster or something like that, or they just get better. And it's like, you know what? We all have the potential in us to get better as we age, because we can keep learning. And as you said about in the old world, people of my age are looked up to, in a sense, by the younger people. People of my parents' age are really looked up to and admired because with age, we have the potential to offer so much. Even in storytelling, I love listening to my father and my father-in-law tell stories about their past and being raised, by immigrants to Canada and what it was like, in the Great Depression. And we don't have quite the same stories because our lives became more chaotic. I could have been on a farm with my kids, milking cows. I was up at 6. I was, I could have been working a farm and having a really simple life. And I wouldn't have been so chaotic. Maybe, but I probably would have been because I think if you're caring for the land, you're still...
Oh yeah, there's so much to do.
There's still work that goes into it. I follow so many
of those families.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So I think no matter where you're at, if you don't overthink it and you live it and you put value on it and appreciate it, like what I see you doing, I think that you move through it and don't overthink what was behind you and don't overthink what's ahead of you. Just, mind you have to plan ahead, I guess. That's responsible.
To an extent. I feel like after COVID, I think that this idea of planning and the illusion of control that we all had, that really helped to kind of break it down.
Yeah.
And as just understanding that the world can change in a second.
Yeah.
It feels very liberating to live like in that state of mind now. I think all of us now are trying to really focus on being present as a collective.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
everything is moving so fast around us.
Absolutely.
But to me, it's so exhilarating as a woman thinking about all these evolutions and all these new parts of my identity that I'm discovering with every decade.
Yeah.
My 20s, although I was the first one among all my friends to have children, which maybe was similar for you too. I don't know back quite, then. Yeah. Becoming a mother at that age. And then at 30, I feel like there was also a big shift of just like, oh, I'm a woman now. There's something weird that was happening. I'm like, I'm not a kid anymore. And I can only imagine how that's going to look like in 40 and 50. If you think back, do you recall those shifts, or you feel like you didn't have the time to really sit
I think
with
it's
them?
interesting that you say that, because I would say in my generation, hitting 30, you do go through that. But I think what we did, and I might be wrong, there are maybe people out there that didn't, and there probably are people that I really admire that always stayed true to themselves and their style and their fashion sense. They never thought, oh, I have to dress a certain way, I have to act a certain way. I would say within my community and how I was, I definitely thought I can't wear my hair a certain way. I need to dress a certain way. When I hit 40, I was like, what the heck was I thinking? Why did I wear that? I mean, I think we all go through that, but not. I think my generation was really hit with the shoulder pads, suits, prissy sort of look that women had to wear. I think that now we're jeans, T-shirts, feel comfortable in your skin, wear what feels right for you.
So much more freedom to decide.
So much more freedom. Flowers, plaids, whatever you want to mix. And it looks good if you're confident, right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's the highest end or the lowest end. It's the confidence that comes through. I'm hoping that's kind of where fashion is going. Obviously it's going to go through cycles and things will change. But if I could go back and shake myself up a little bit in my 30s, that would probably be the age that I would say I was so intent on doing the kid thing, thought I was a lot older than I really was. But I didn't have time to think about it. I think that's a lot
when
of
when you're in it, it's a whole other thing. And speaking of fashion, I'm so curious to hear about the beauty standards.
Everybody had the Farrah Fawcett flip. I know I said recently that was my hair icon, but she had great hair.
Yeah.
And it went like that naturally. So it was like cookie cutter, which is why that thin or fat or tall or short, you all wanted, if you were in that perfect mold, you were it, right? And that was always definitely there. Walking in the right dress, the right shoes, the right brand, because we didn't have the variety. I know from talking to my mom, from what she did, because she was very, very passionate about fashion, and that sort of Jackie Onassis look was big for her, if you want to say. She wore a corset. My mother was tiny like you. She.
Wow.
Not when I was around.
Yeah. Before
me. Because that was the thing, suck it all in and not an ounce of fat. So they really sacrificed in that generation. Our generation sort of became a little more flexible. And I think that sort of rocker edge that came out maybe flew off the punk and grunge look. And all of a sudden was like, okay, we can shake it up a little bit. We can do that. We can wear that. And businesses opened up that were all about denims, and that became, I can wear jeans. I don't have to wear dress pants. I mean, why am I dressing this way? I don't even work, at that point of my life. And we felt that it was what we had to do.
Yeah, I feel like we take it for granted, the amount of exposure and access that we have to see people from every walk of life around the world. Like you find yourself in so many different people, and you can really find your style through that exposure as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I love looking at, as you said, like all around the world, all the people that I follow or try to find. It's like, oh my God, look how she's mixed that top with those pants, breaking that mold of just a white collared shirt with, khaki pants, which is what the uniform was here for a long time. Now that's a uniform for kids to go to school, and it's not how we dress every day. Uniqueness, diversity, self-expression, being artistic has become a thing, has become the thing that we all want to be. We all want to be ourselves, because when we're ourselves, when we show our true colors, I think we're happiest. And going back to parenting, I think that when you allow your children to be who they are rather than cookie cut and mold, that's when you have joy. And, that's what I guess I see with you and your children. I see these kids that are just playful. They're not fearful. I'm sure they still are, though.
I think a little bit of fear is always good.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't want to lose control over that. That's something that actually hit me a couple of months ago. We were in the car with my friend, and she was asking me, she also has small kids. We came out of lunch, we were with the kids, and I was just watching my kids, and they're so open and express themselves and their minds and just don't feel the need to do things just because, even when I tell them to do something, and if it's not aligned with them, they'll be like, I actually don't feel this way. Like they're so open. I think it was the first time in my life where I looked at my friend and I'm like, you know what? I'm a really good mom. And it made me cry because I don't think I've ever done that. I've never said that to myself. Being a mother during those times, was that something people would vocalize, or that you would tell yourself?
I think that in me, I always felt a little bit of, what's the word? Inferiority towards working women, towards career women, because I was so passionate about what I was doing, and it felt a little like I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't smart enough or competent enough, but I felt so good about what I was doing. And now when I see my children and I see what they are, and they're good people, when I see it, it makes me really, there's a Jewish word, kvel. I don't know if you know that word, but I really kvel. I gush. I'm proud. I think every ounce of whatever I did and what my husband did, I'm sorry, what we did was for the right reasons. I guess I looked at myself and I said, yeah, I did okay. I think, again, they're just really good kids. Yeah, they did crazy things. Yes, they told me everything. One of my daughters said, when I asked her, what do you have to say about me? And she said, well, I told you too much. I know that because one day she told me something that I kind of looked at her and I said, did you have to share that with me? And she said, but you told me to tell you everything. And it was like, oh God, what have I created here? But now we look back and we think, thank God she told me everything, because that's what we always were. And it's still that way. And I'm not about being a helicopter parent, because I really wanted them to experience. And the hardest day for me is probably sending them off to university. That's when you go through all of this and then all of a sudden they're gone and it's their time now. And then at this stage of my life, I realize you give your kids wings, you help them plant their roots, and you help them become good people.
You have to be so self-aware and in tune to know when it's time to step back, because we can always say, well, they need a bit more, and we need to make sure that it's very easy, especially now, to continue finding reasons to stick by, and then we're in a way robbing them from their experiences. Right. Did you prepare yourself to even like the empty nesting, how is it going to look like?
I think that that's an interesting thing too, because my sister sent me, I think it was my sister sent me an Instagram post yesterday with a girl, our ages, a mother and daughter. And the mother said, we didn't have Google. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have the wherewithal other than a support group, a mother's support group, to really share things, to get information from. So no, I didn't prepare myself because there was no way to prepare in I mean, there were books or there's self-help books. So, there are things that you could read, but reading about the empty nest sounded kind of depressing to me. Actually, there's good things that come with it, but yeah, no, I didn't prepare myself for any of it. But then sometimes I think in life when we over-prepare, it just messes everything up. Don't overthink anything, because again, this too shall pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have a baby, like we didn't know. I didn't have what you guys have. I couldn't Google when they had a rash.
I mean, thank God, because this whole
I would have been
Googling
nuts.
every single thing, you think it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Again, too much information, it can also be a huge contributor to anxiety. You mentioned that you got married at a very young age. You met your husband. How old were you?
Okay, so that's a really exciting question for me today because today is my 40th anniversary.
I know.
So why am I here on my 40th
Huge.
anniversary? Well, we've been married 40 years. What can I say? I graduated from university, and a month later I got married, and I was 21. I had just turned 21, and I had my son at 23. We were high school
Same thing.
sweethearts. So the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I had 3 kids before 29. My third at 29, and my fourth was 4 years later.
So 40 years, that's a huge milestone. Huge.
It's huge.
I'm just processing 40 years.
It's huge. It's huge. It's wonderful. It's commitment. It's dedication. It's sacrifices. There's a lot that goes into that. That's a whole podcast.
Yeah.
No, but there's a lot. There is.
What has your perspective on marriage evolve as you and your husband grew older? Like, did it change from what you thought about before?
Again, I think that nothing's glamorous, really, and I think that that's where things can go wrong. I shouldn't say nothing. There's a lot of glamour, there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of effort, and there's a lot of trust and respect and gratitude for each other and understanding the spaces that we're in, why we're going through what we're going through. And, you have to be conscious. You have to be aware of each other. And often you're just flying by each other in the daytime, especially when your lives are busy with kids. And I think that expectations we need more. The picture of the happy couple is not necessarily what the happy couple look like every day, and so I think it's, we had great roots because we were so young. I was only 15 when I met my husband. He was my best friend, and we talked and we talked and we talked. Yesterday we were reminiscing. He said, we never fought, not once for 7 years.
Wow.
Anyway, so we still have that moment once in a while.
Yeah.
But we definitely disagree and we definitely have our moments, but we're both dedicated.
It's amazing to see that if we're looking at what's presented to us in movies and shows, I think maybe there's 1 or 2 Jack Nicholson or Diane Keaton movies that showcase marriage after, the honeymoon and kind of the first initial phase. But you don't really get inside, you don't really see inside marriage that spans through so many years. To me, what's interesting is how the communication changes with the phases of life. And we talked about it with my husband a couple of months ago, I told him, I don't feel like I'm the person that you married. Like the essence is there, but I feel like I've already changed probably 3 times.
Hopefully.
And hopefully, exactly. And it's going to continue to change.
Yeah.
So how do you, from your experience, how do you learn how to adapt that communication with these life stages?
I think it goes again back to the roots. Your values being the same. So if your values are the same, you're looking for, you're supporting your community. That's always something that you've done, say, or you're supporting your children. That's a union together. So everything that you're doing, as long as you're on the same paths, it's always going to be that way, whether you're evolving or not. You know what I mean? I think we have to evolve to be interesting. Because and share those, evolutions with our spouses.
To me, I think commitment is, you mentioned it a couple of times, and it truly, that's what it is, because you have to, commitment will allow you to be patient, to go through the lows. And
I think grass is always greener on the other side, unless you're in a situation that is intolerable. There are situations like that, and I understand that. I was fortunate that I met who I met, and I guess he was too. So, we're committed, and it feels good, and our commitment is crucial for for both of us, to realize. And I think now, though, as women, it's different. It's got to be different. And there has to be so much respect and understanding on both parts.
A lot of respect and understanding. A lot of therapy for both parties separately and together. It's very interesting how now the younger generation approaches getting into a relationship. There's no clear kind of jobs anymore.
No.
There's no clear understanding of this is what I do and this is what I do. You have to kind of build a contract, renegotiate it every couple of years to make sure that you guys are still the same. Because again, with the career and everything just looks so different these days. And you welcomed your first grandchild?
I have 7.
Wait, what?
I have 7 grandchildren. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
how old is the oldest?
The oldest is almost 8. Or almost 8. Well, he'll be 8 in a couple of months. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So watching is it your daughter that has the 8-year-old?
My son has 3 children.
Yeah.
And then 2 of my daughters have 2 girls.
So watching them parent and move in the world the way it is today compared to how you moved in the world the way it used to be.
My girls are stay-at-home moms, work-from-home moms. So how they do the juggle is very interesting. We had a lot of lockdown during COVID, as you know. So we had a bit of a slower period, and parenting at home was different. And they're now out of that, thank goodness. And it's a juggle. And I think social media has an effect on how they parent sometimes. And
in what way?
I think the expectation's greater. So their disappointment sometimes in things that go on in their families might be based on what they see on social media. Maybe not my children or other people's children. Younger parents, I think, are influenced by what they see. Because when people make their houses look perfect and people make their children look perfect, it makes you feel inferior. But I think that we always have that. Before Instagram, we had parents that made it look easier than kind of looking at them. How did they do that? I think that's always been a case. So watching my children parent is a very exciting thing. And this past week, I watched my eldest daughter ski with her daughter on fake snow in Mont Tremblant. And that may have been one of the highlights of my whole parenting, because watching my granddaughter ski with my daughter, who I skied with, is like full circle of just pure joy. And, I think that that's what we see in our grandchildren, is a joy that's way better than parenting.
Oh, this is actually something that I was very curious about as my kids getting older. Building those strong bonds is something that extremely important to me, because I know they're going to go through, we're approaching teenage years soon. So do you have any strategies that you use to build that strong connection, especially during the teenage years?
I think from the get-go, as I said earlier, I think it's so important to keep communication open. Home is a safe place. My home was a place where everybody's kids could come over. My house was the sleepover house. I was the designated driver. They went to parties. They could call me at 3:00 in the morning. I just made myself available because I wanted to keep them safe, and it was my way of doing that, I suppose. But at the same time, I wasn't invasive, so I just opened up conversation. I love talking. So whether we were talking about what was going on at school, if there was bullying in school, why was it going on? How did you feel about that? Always letting them know that they could share stories of things that went on at school that they weren't comfortable with. I would say I'm a highly empathetic person. I feel for everybody, and I hate it when someone's getting treated badly. And I would say my kids feel the same. So I really wanted them to always feel that way within the classroom and with their peers, and just be a team building. It was always sort of in that conversation, it was always about building them up, but at the same time letting them know that they could do that in the world, that they could always, so communication was always there, and I think that was key. Truly key. I went to a conference when I was a very young mom, babies and toddlers, and the speaker talked about how to talk so your kids will listen, and listen so your kids will talk. Your kids might dye their hair red, hair grows. Other stuff, not so much. So teach your kids You don't have to tell your kids how to feel. They'll learn how to feel if you talk to them about feelings. And, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? We think we have to know more, but it just happens when you open it up and have conversation.
Were you a strict parent, or was your husband was more of the strict presence?
I don't think either of us were terribly strict. I think that we were very lucky. So, as far as curfews or whatever, my girls were competitive dancers. My son skied. My girls skied competitively as well. So I kept them busy at good things to keep them out of trouble a lot. So as far as rules, like they weren't going to malls shopping. They were dancing and doing homework. I didn't have strict homework rules. Maybe I could have. Sorry, kids. It's like, because to me, education is really important, but the whole package was really important. I wanted them to be well-rounded. And, that's even in choosing universities and choosing programs with them. It was about the bigger picture of being well-rounded, not trying to funnel them. And I think I did that. I think I did that okay. And they do tell me everything still.
I love that.
And that's good. Yeah.
I feel like keeping them busy is one thing that never changed throughout the years.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
Absolutely. Responsibilities, chores, making them feel a part. Yeah.
Going back to talking about the shifting of the mindset when it comes to aging, is there any strategies for cultivating a positive attitude? Because I do think that that's something that the younger generation is looking for. Even now, I think that there's less terms like anti-aging and things like that. It's slowly changing.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yes. Is there any strategies that you've used to just feel grateful?
Obviously, mindfulness, all the words that we use now, living in the present moment. But the reality is just feeling grateful and waking up every morning and saying, I've got something to do, even if it's just go for the walk. Don't stay in bed. Don't lollygag around. Don't overthink, because when you overthink, that's when you get caught in something that you don't want to. Those should-haves, could-haves. Just get up and go. And when you're going, what you can do to make your day a positive one. I walk, I run, I hike, I'm active every single day. If I didn't, I would not be so happy. There are people that are definitely not the same. People say they don't have that ability to practice positivity the same. It's more work, and I respect that. But at the same time, I think we all have the ability to sink into something that's not so nice if we allow ourselves. So I think with aging, when you get up and go and you remain positive, I know all my people that I follow that are older, that's what they do. So it's like if they're doing it and they look that good and they feel that good, then I'm going to keep doing it because I want to be that way too. And I don't know if you follow Dan Buttner and the Blue Zone. Okay, so everything about what he says they do in those communities is what I sort of do in my life and have always done in my life and have raised my kids to be like. And I think that, respecting elders, I don't mean making people out to be gods that they're not, if that makes any sense. Like I think that we just need to appreciate everybody in our lives, the young, the old. Every age has a value, and not overthink it. Just have fun while we're doing it. Obviously being responsible. And the responsibilities are not always fun, but making life around that fun, making going to work fun so that when you come home, you can have more fun.
Well, Lynn, I am very inspired and aspiring to have that lightness of being that you carry around yourself, because you truly move with such ease and grace.
Thank you.
I'm sure that it is work and it is something that, you cultivate and work on every single day. But I'm just really excited for you to continue sharing your story.
Thank you.
And your light and inspiring other women like you've inspired me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Well,
for being
I
here.
feel the same, and I'm honored to be here. And you are such a beacon of light. You are very unique for your generation, if I can say this, because you are a young mom, and most of your friends are probably just having babies now. So even navigating that would have been hard. I'm sure, because you were alone. Was your mother really supportive during that time? Or was she
My
here?
mother was also a very young mom.
Okay.
So I think that she understood my struggle, but it was a different generation. But she was there a
Yeah.
lot. I think that a lot of kind of my identity crisis came from just not having other people around me that were experiencing the same thing. So I had no
For
one
sure.
to talk to.
For sure. Yeah, I was the same.
So it was a very interesting journey.
Yeah.
But I also think that it made me realize and pay attention and seek people like you,
Right.
you know, people out in the world that I
Yeah.
can really draw that wisdom from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You saying that, that's why I fell in love with you, because I saw this person that I assumed was really on a path by herself for so many of those years at the beginning. And it is a lonely path in some ways because you don't have anyone to share that with. But when you make that connection with people, that's the gift. So all those other mums out there now that are reaching out to you and saying, thank you for putting it out there. You're not alone, you know, and we're not, because the journey is women supporting women out there. So it's really, or parents.
Love that.
Anyway,
Thank you so much.
thank you. It's a treat. It's
Really
a treat.
appreciate it. Where can our listeners find you?
On Instagram at White Hair Wisdom, and I have a email address there, so people can reach me that way. But yeah, and I try to share and I try to talk as much as I can, but I really try to create a lot on my own, just because it's been about being honest and true, and that's. So who knows where you'll find me.
I see you everywhere now.
Yeah,
you're modeling. You're
am.
doing so much, and you're bringing such a great representation throughout, like the fashion and beauty. And I just hope it's going to continue.
Thank you. I just hope people aren't afraid of aging, because it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, you know. And that's the way we have to look at it. But today is the most important day, so let's just live today and enjoy it, right?
Yes.
Anyway. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't miss my newest episode right here. And if you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. I love reading your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, you can leave them in the comment section. And always remember, you are not alone.